channel. Happy New Year! I feel like it's been a really long time since I've sat down and spoken to the camera. I don't know what I was trying to do with my legs then. I think the last video I uploaded was just for Christmas. It was my festive get ready with me, and I didn't intend on that being the last thing uploaded before Christmas. But the end of the year ran away with me a little bit and it got so busy, and I know because there's so many vlogmases going up and there's so many other things, I thought I'm just going to slip back into the distance and just let everyone do their thing and then start the new year fresh, and I think that's the best thing. And it's been really nice having a bit of a break and looking at the kind of thing that I want to do going into the new year, and the kind of thing I really enjoy filming on YouTube, because there are so many amazing YouTubers out there that it's sometimes quite hard to know your place, especially if you're more of a newbie. So kind of going back and looking at things that worked really well last year and that I really enjoyed filming was really useful. And I took a week off last week. I've got a fringe as well, that's another thing, forgot to mention that. I got a fringe just before Christmas as well. That was a bit of an impulsive, very unlike me decision. I had a fringe in about 2008, it was a real Lego haircut, kind of Hadouken thing, but I had an itch to scratch, and every time I go into the hairdressers I'm like, oh, I really want to get it recut in, and I always back away because I'm like, no, you'll hate it, but it's hair. So I did that, and then I had a week off last week, and I really kind of imagined it. I think the first week of January have lots of high hopes, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do all these day trips and I'm going to decorate this room, which is something that is on our list for this month, so hopefully by the end of the month this might look a little bit different. But we've had all these things that we wanted to do, and Joe and I both got a bit sick, we were both a bit unwell, and this week just ended up being trips to take Maggie to get her haircut, going to the doctors, and just doing lots of boring life admin. And I don't know, it all felt very important and necessary. I had a smear test, I ticked off things like that, which, you know, you get the letter and all these different things that you have on this list that you're kind of too anxious or scared to do, but it's all been done, but it wasn't as glamorous as I kind of initially thought the week would go. But anyway, all things aside, I have got some videos planned which I'm feeling really excited to film. The first being this one, which I'm going to talk a little bit about my New Year's resolutions and goals, because although I know a lot of people are a bit adverse to resolutions and they're a bit like, no, they're not cool, they're not really useful, I personally find them quite inspiring, and although I don't often stick to them, I've kind of found myself in a place that I don't make myself feel too guilty about it anymore. I just like starting the year knowing the kind of things I'd like to achieve and the things I want to kind of aim towards in the next few years, and have a bit of a goal really. Not to put too much pressure on myself, but just to give myself a bit of a driving force, because last year I remember I had post-it notes and I wrote down a few of the things. I think I watched maybe one of Anna's videos and I wrote down a few things, some of which I achieved, some of which I didn't. I didn't really make myself feel bad about them. A few of them were like, you know, I'd like to hit this many subscribers and things like that, which, you know, I didn't do, but I'm kind of like, I realised it wasn't that important in the grand scheme of things. And then things like I'd love to have a house and things like that. So that was really useful, and I love looking back on the video and seeing the things I set out to do and the books that really inspired me. So I'm going to pop a link to that one down below. But I'm going to talk to you today about this year's goals and some of the books I'm going to be using as tools to help see me through the year, because there's some great books, some of which I've read, some of which they're on my list. So let's get going. The first book I'm going to talk about is this one, which you may have seen pretty much everywhere, and I'm sure you have, but it is The Little Black Book, which is absolutely amazing. You've probably seen this everywhere because it deserves every bit of recognition it's had. I picked this up for the first time around August last year, and I think I got it just before I went on a train down to Brighton to see Susie, and I was really excited to read it, mainly because I knew I could probably tackle it on the journey. And I left Brighton having read it and felt so inspired, and I was waxing lyrical about it, and I think I even whipped out my pencil and started underlining things, because this book really tackles everything kind of work related, whether you're self-employed, whether you're in a business, whether you're trying to make your side hustle your full gig. It's got so many different things, from networking, let me look at the beginning, it's got, yeah, literally things down to getting it done, networking, you know, getting over creative blocks, like money, all the things, some of which are more taboo, that, I don't know, we all struggle with, and I especially struggle with. I am a real comparison fiend, and I have a real tendency to look what other people are doing, or kind of I've got a lot of self-doubt, I think, which I don't know, it doesn't feel like a cool thing to admit. I think on YouTube especially, when everyone's really confident and really cool and saying you feel a bit like against everyone, it's a bit, not against everyone, but amongst everyone, feels a bit rubbish. But this book, when I read it, I felt really motivated, I felt really capable. It's got loads of amazing quotes from women. How many times have I said amazing there? It's got lots of things spoken by different women at the back who are in so many different careers across all manner of fields. So I think it's a really great book. If you need a little resource, I always have it next to my bed, and you can read it once and then you can pick it up again and again, and it will always serve a great purpose. So I absolutely love that. The next thing I've been reading, I've read a few pages of this, but mainly because I have a really nasty habit of picking up several books at once and then wanting to read them all and then starting them all and then never getting much further than the first 10 pages, because I'm always like, right, I'll read a page here, probably fall asleep, then start another one. But this one is called You Are a Badass: How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life, which is the ultimate kind of TED Talk kind of book. Sometimes a dose of this is really, really good. It's really useful. And I know that there's also another one called You Are a Badass at Making Money, and loads of my friends have spoken really highly about that. And it basically says in the back that it basically touches on identify and change the self-sabotaging beliefs and behaviours that stop you from getting what you want. Lots of amazing things I've heard. I'm really excited to give it a read. I really want this year to be the year that I actually have a bit of faith in myself and believe that I'm capable, because I'm definitely someone that, especially if I'm working on a project and I get a bit of feedback, I often take feedback as quite harsh criticism, and I'm quite hard on myself, and I'm like, oh God, you know, it's really silly, especially with things like YouTube where people are constantly saying, hey, I would have liked this if this was a bit longer, or if you'd have filmed cutaways, and I mean less things like that, but I'm quite quick to be like, oh, it was rubbish then, instead of just saying, okay, that's cool, I'll add that in next time. And I really want to, I suppose it's not a very productive way of looking at feedback, so I really want to get better at that, and just, you know, having a bit of faith in yourself. So I think this is another great book which hopefully will give me the little kick up the bum I need, so looking forward to tucking into that. The next read that I have actually started and I absolutely love, which I heard about through Emma Gannon and her wonderful podcast, this is called Beta, and it's called There Is More Than One Way to Be the Boss, and Quiet Girls Can Run the World, you know, same thing. I picked this up because I don't know, I feel like it really spoke to me. But I read the first bit and I actually underlined it. Me and my pencil. In a world that champions shouting the loudest, both in real life and online, we're told that female success in the workplace is allowed to look only a certain way, big, brash and alpha. And especially working online, I do feel that it can be quite a noisy place, and especially if you're not someone to really, if you're more of a thinker, or you're more of someone that doesn't like shouting about their successes or finds it quite difficult, this is a really useful resource, because I think it's very easy to feel out of your depth when you're online, and especially in a world that's dominated by numbers and followings and things, it's very quick to kind of look at what you've got and say, well, maybe what I'm doing isn't that valuable. And books like this are really, really useful at giving you a little bit of a confidence boost, a bit of a lift, of making you realise that, hey, you are capable. Especially Rebecca Holman, who I believe was an editor, and she felt really out of her depth, but she was incredibly capable. And she speaks about that briefly at the beginning of the book, and it's really interesting to see someone else's perspective, and especially in a position which you'd often deem kind of, I don't know, you watch films like The Devil Wears Prada and you think editors are these kind of, I don't know, big powerhouses that are very alpha and very kind of dominant, and I don't know, and it's a really, really great book at kind of changing that perspective and making you realise that no matter what you want to do, you are capable, of whether you're someone that, you know, is very vocal, and that's not a bad thing at all, or whether you're someone that's a little bit more, keeps themselves to themselves and just, I don't know, likes pottering around in the background a bit, but still likes getting shit done. So this is a really great book for that, and I really love reading it, so I don't know, definitely give this a read if you fancy it too. Moving on from more kind of businessy, work-related goals, I have picked up a couple of books which I thought could combine with a few of the other things I really want to do this year. One of the other things, which is slightly less blog related, is getting back in my car. This sounds like the most boring thing ever, but last year, actually not last year, the year before, in December, I passed my driving test after what felt like ages of learning. I finally passed my test second time, and after that I didn't really get back in it. I felt really confident when I passed my test. I did it with 4 minors and I was like, yeah, I can drive now, and I was determined to not be someone that left it and didn't go on the motorway or anything like that, and I have. I've left it, and now the thought of getting in the car makes me feel really, really worried. I think just before I stopped driving, it wasn't intentional, but I stalled a few times at traffic lights and thought I'd broken down and all sorts of silly things. So I kind of lost a lot of my faith in my ability. So I'm really determined, especially where we live in London, to get back in the car, you know, drive to the park, drive to a National Trust property and take mags out and do things like that without getting myself in a real tiz. So if anyone's got any confidence boosters for getting back driving, and that's on my list. Another thing that I really want to do is get back into a routine of being able to switch off in the evening and just cook dinner and do things that help me unwind. Last year I went to Somerset with my family, and it was over that time that I was like, I'm really going to switch off, I've got no work to do. And it was a really nice time, and it made me realise that I can get stuff done and then still be able to cook dinner, do things. And one other thing that I'm going to be taking out a lot, because this has definitely helped me cook in the evenings, is this book called The Roasting Tin. I've waxed lyrical about this, so you've heard about it lots before and you're probably going to be like, oh, again, this book. But if you haven't seen me speak about it, it's a really amazing, essentially, book about one dish dinners. So if you're someone that's not very confident in the kitchen, is a bit time short, and still wants to create really healthy, delicious meals and have that time to be able to switch off from your work and do something that feels really great at the end. So I think there's a real satisfaction at the end of cooking a meal when you're like, oh, I've made this and I've been able to enjoy the process. This is great. It's given me a lot of confidence to cook things that I wouldn't have normally cooked, like fish, which is so silly because it's not a real left field, like crazy thing to cook. But I think if you're a bit nervous with food, it really helps you know the timings of things, what they go with, how to serve it. And it's just really, really useful and really gave me some faith in my ability in the kitchen. So I really recommend that. I've also been loving this book called How to Be a Grown Up by Daisy Buchanan. I picked this up last year and I read it cover to cover really quickly because she is such a brilliant writer. She's really funny, really sparkly, really, I don't know, she's really smart, but in a way that's really approachable, really relatable, and just quite warm. And I loved it, and I messaged her after I finished reading it because I was just like, it really, like, I don't know, I don't want to say it really spoke to me, but it made me feel really capable. And on the front it says, you're doing fine and let me tell you why. And it speaks about everything from like falling in love, how to be healthy, like in body and mind, and just everything, like loving your body and like being sociable, how to survive at work. And one thing actually said, I folded the page, and it's basically talking about being creative and how like you never really reach a peak with what you do. If you're really ambitious, you're never going to reach the peak of your career. There's always going to be something else you're going to want to do. So you've got to get used to just enjoying that. And there was also something she said, which was like for a long time she hadn't tried to get what she wanted because she was so scared of failing. And just touches on so many things I could really relate to. And I was like, oh my god, I felt like this was written for me. So if, you know, you just want a really good, even if you're not overly ambitious, which is absolutely fine, like, you know, not everyone is ambitious, like that doesn't define anybody, but even if you just want to know, you know, how to be a grown-up and just how to like tackle like really mundane things in a really fun way and like hear some of her amazing anecdotes, I really recommend this because it really is just a really great book. So 10 out of 10. Okay, I've got two more books here on my lap. The first is this one, which my brother actually lent me. My brother is someone that's he had a real phase last year about reading like self-help kind of inspirational books, and I don't know, he passed a few over to me, and this one has been next to my bed for a while. I'm definitely meaning to read it, and it's called Make Your Bed, Little Things That Can Change Your Life and Maybe the World, and I haven't really tucked into it much yet. I think it is about a Navy SEAL and some habits he basically had and picked up that gave him more structure, gave him really like a lot of motivation. And I don't know, it's a New York Times bestseller, so I've probably just done it such a disservice there by saying, yeah, you know, he made his bed, he did some stuff. But it's meant to be really, really good, and I really trust my brother's recommendation, so I'm gonna read that. And last but not least is this book, which I have seen in so many places recently, and it's called Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls, 100 Tales of Extraordinary Women. And I saw it in a lot of bookshops, and I was very much like, you know, if and when I have a child, or I could get it for my friends' little girls or little boys and have it, just, I think it's a really great gift book. And I never really thought about picking it up for myself, and looking through it, I'm like, why? Like, it's not made for like anyone. It could be a great child's book, it could be a great adult's book, and basically it's got 100 different amazing women, some of which I've heard of, some of which I hadn't heard of. It's got like Malala, it's got Jane Goodall, it's got so many different people that, I don't know, I think it's a really inspiring read if you really want a little pick-me-up before you go to bed. This is great. They're all really like one-page amazing tales and really inspiring, and they all come from such varied backgrounds through all different walks of life, and I think it's just such a gorgeous book. I'd say it was a great gift, but we're not, I think we're going to steer away from that for a bit now. After Christmas I'm like, no more gift buying. But absolutely love this as well, and just such an inspiring read. And that is a wrap. I really hope you enjoyed this video and, you know, found a bit of inspiration. I didn't waffle too much. I feel like I definitely have, but let me know what else you'd like to see on my channel going forward for the new year. I've got a few things lined up which I'm excited to get on and film, and some more kind of interview, like wardrobe videos, which I love doing so much, but I'd love to know what you love seeing. That's the most important thing. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Welcome back. Thank you for sticking around this new year, and I hope you've had a lovely start to the year so far. And yeah, I will see you next week for more fun frolics and videos, which I will never end a video saying again, but God. Anyway, have a lovely rest of your week, and I will see you next time. Bye.